I never wondered what's really shaping our global food supply.
Especially something as fundamental as rice.
Exactly. So today we're taking a deep dive into the May 2025 Global Rice Market Report.
Lots to unpack there.
Right. Our mission is basically to dig into the latest data, uncover some maybe surprising facts, and get you really well informed on some key insights.
Yeah, we'll be looking at everything from, record production forecasts to these fascinating shifts in trade dynamics.
And what it all means, right, for consumers, for producers.
Absolutely. That's the core of it.
Okay, let's jump straight in then. Global overview first. The USDA, that's the U.S. Department of Agriculture, they're forecasting a huge 2025-26 season.
Huge is right. Global production pushing over 500 million tons. 541.6 million is the number.
Wow. And what's really striking is consumption is like almost perfectly matched. 541.1 million tons projected.
Shows incredibly robust global demand, doesn't it?
It really does. And trade, also climbing.
Yeah, trade volume smaller overall, but it's also projected to rise quite a bit, up to 61.7 million tons. It's a market that's definitely in motion.
Powerful motion, yeah. But then there's India.
Ah, yes, India. What's truly fascinating here is this kind of paradox we're seeing.
Paradox. How so?
Well, they're projected to stay the world's largest exporter, right? Aiming for a record 25 million tons.
Which is massive. More than
Vietnam, Thailand, and Pakistan put together.
Okay, but the paradox is?
The paradox is their actual exports surprisingly plunged by nearly 60% in April and May of 2025.
60%. That's quite a twist, isn't it? Especially because India lifted those export restrictions back in September 2024.
Exactly. Restrictions gone, yet the numbers just plummeted.
So what happened? Weak demand? Buyers already stocked up?
It seems to be that, yeah, weak demand and large buyer inventories. It just reveals a critical sensitivity in the market.
So even with a major player like India lifting restrictions, if buyer confidence dips or they're sitting on stock,
it can destabilize things almost immediately. And this brings up an important point about prices.
Right, the prices. The FAO, that's the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, their global rice price index actually rose 1.4% in May.
It did. But then, by early June, actual market prices had fallen back, about $8 to $12 per ton down.
So it's like a constant tug of war. Prices reacting almost instantly to, well, perception as much as physical supply.
Precisely. Abundant supply forecasts versus fluctuating demand and sentiment. It's very dynamic.
Okay, so while India is dealing with that volatility, let's shift focus. What about Vietnam? Their story seems quite different this year.
Very different. Their total export volume for the first 5 months of 2025 was actually up 4%, hit 4.2 million tons.
Okay, volume up. But the value?
That's the interesting part. The overall value surprisingly decreased, down 15.4%.
Why? Just lower average prices pulling it down?
Primarily, yes, lower prices globally. But if you dig a bit deeper...
There's always something deeper, isn't there?
Usually. Amidst that overall trend, Vietnam's rice exports, specifically to the U.S. market, they more than doubled just in May.
Doubled to the U.S.?
Yep. And for the first 5 months overall, up a strong 46.1% year-on-year.
That's significant. Why the U.S. specifically?
Well, the U.S. is a key market for high-value fragrant rice. Think premium varieties like ST25.
Ah, the good stuff. And prices for that held up.
More than held up. They actually increased for those exports to the U.S., averaged about 927 point at the ton.
So Vietnam's playing a strategic game here, shifting focus to high-value grains.
It certainly looks that way. Very smart.
But is focusing so much on premium markets, is that sustainable long-term? Are there risks?
That's a great question. But the projections, they're actually showing Vietnam could become the second largest rice exporter globally this year.
Wow, potentially leapfrogging Thailand.
Potentially. And it seems largely driven by the strategic focus on high-value specialty grains.
Any other examples of that?
Yeah, a prime one is the first shipment, 500 tons of what they're calling low-emission green rice.
Low emission, meaning greener farming practices.
Exactly. Cultivated with a much smaller environmental footprint, that shipment went to Japan, valued at over $1,000 per ton.
Over $1,000 a ton. So it's not just high value, it's high sustainability value too.
Seems to be the direction. It aligns with growing consumer demand for that.
Okay, so beyond market trends and the specific examples, policy always plays a role, right?
Absolutely crucial. And we're seeing movement there too. The Vietnam Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the VCCI.
What are they up to?
They're pushing to remove some older regulations, things like mandatory storage requirements for rice exporters.
Why remove that?
Well, if you connect it to the bigger picture, the goal is more flexibility, more competitiveness for Vietnamese exporters.
Makes sense. Less red tape, more agility.
Precisely. It's really about aligning regulations with this broader shift, moving away from sort of strict government control towards enabling more market participation.
Helping them adapt faster to global demand and grab those new opportunities like the premium and green rice markets.
That seems to be the strategy, yes. Adapting and seizing opportunities.
It's a fascinating picture, so much change happening. Thinking about all these evolving dynamics, what really stands out to you?
Well, here's a final thought, maybe a bit provocative for you to consider. As climate change concerns rightly grow and, consumer preferences keep shifting towards sustainable practices, how might the emergence of this premium low-emission rice truly transform things? Not just the export market, but maybe the fundamental ways rice is cultivated worldwide in the years ahead.